He was ringing me like a year before in full Lenny voice with everything.
Really?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'd be like
Wow.
putting the kids to bed and I'd get a FaceTime from him as Lenny.
Oh my
Um,
God.
be like, oh, okay.
Good to see you.
Hello.
Hey. So I guess the first time we met was 2012?
11.
Was it 11?
Yeah, it was 11. I'm trying to remember if we met. We had those couple of days, or like a couple of days of rehearsals in the apartment for Shame.
Yeah.
Probably not before that, though. I'd spent time with Steve McQueen in New
Yeah.
York a bit, but you had been doing stuff separately with him, and then we had that couple of days, and then started work
And
after doing quite a lot of kind of messing around with this sort of improvising and stuff.
yeah, yeah,
Which
yeah.
is such a long time ago.
I know. How did you find that experience?
What I loved about it was all my scenes were at night, pretty much. There was like one scene where I was in it in the day.
Yeah.
So I just got, it sort of felt kind of, there was something weird about it being at night that I felt, because there was so much stuff in it that I was terrified of.
Yeah.
I think something about it being in the evening made it feel kind of more, I don't know, easier to do stuff that really freaked me out. But I mean, I loved it. I loved acting with you.
Yeah, no, likewise. I was just thinking back on it, and I was thinking, God, every scene we had was quite fraught. It was such, the history of the two characters. And for me, I definitely find that film was like the darkest
Oh, yeah.
and like the one that actually sort of stuck around
Yeah.
perhaps the longest.
Yeah. What
Um,
did you do before? So you'd worked with Steve on Hunger?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then when you were doing Hunger, did he bring Shame to you after that?
So I think it was, with Steve, he usually percolates on an idea for a while.
Mm.
Before then starting to sort of realize it. So I think it must have been like, well, we shot Hunger in 2007.
Oh, 2007?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
wow, so it was that long
Which
before.
it bled into 2008, beginning of 2008.
Mm.
And so then we shot in 2011, so he must have come to me with the idea around 2010.
And what did you think when he brought it to you?
I thought, wow, yeah, I thought really, again, provocative subject matter.
Yeah.
A very interesting subject matter, and just totally, different to what we had done before with Hunger. But then there was this idea of Bobby Sands being a prisoner, using his body as a weapon, and then this other guy being trapped in, the addiction that his body takes part in, i.e. sort of, sexual addiction. It's Steve, it's like he'd go from one thing, like, Hunger. When he told me about Hunger, I was like, why are you making a film, about Bobby Sands? And he just said, well, I remember in 1981, they used to watch the 6 o'clock news religiously as a family, and this picture came up of a guy, and the numbers kept changing underneath. And he thought it was the guy's age, and then asked his parents, what's that? And it's like, no, he's on a hunger strike. And he was like, it was the same year. He said, Tottenham won the FA Cup. And I was like, okay. I was like, I have to work with this guy.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it took me by surprise because it was just something, so different.
Yeah, but such a mammoth task, that film. And Shame, but Hunger, I mean, with the...
Well, we were up against it because we shot it in 5 weeks, so it was 25 days.
That's
And I remember it was like going from, the scene with you in the bathroom, and then it was straight on to another set, immediately after. It was pretty full on.
Yeah, but there was something cool about that. I mean, I think, oftentimes I find the quicker it goes, the less I have time to think about stuff and kind of get in my own way. So I kind of like there was a pace to it that just like, there was never really a pause.
That's right. And I think, that's the thing with Steve as well. Once you're going, you're going.
Yeah.
You hit the ground running. The setups are pretty quick. So for sure, there's something very exhilarating about that. You've always lived in the UK?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, pretty much. We've been in and out of America for work stuff, but always been in the UK and always done lots of work over here.
Yeah.
So it has meant relocating over to the States quite a lot for various bits and pieces. We shot Promising Young Woman in LA, so we all moved out for that. And Wildlife we shot in Ohio. So, you find yourself in like a little rented house.
Yeah, because I wasn't sure whether you lived in New York for a while, because that's what I was thinking.
Well, I was living there when we met, because I'd just done a play.
That's right.
No, I was about to do a play. So we did Shame, and then I did this, Yeah, is that the order? Yeah. I did a play straight after, Through a Glass Darkly. And so I'd been living there for about maybe 6 months when we met.
Hmm.
And then I did this play, and then I moved home. So
Yeah.
I was living in New York then. I love New York.
Yeah, so do I, because
Yeah.
that's why I was asking, because I always wanted to go to New York. It was exciting for Steve as well to shoot
Yeah.
in New York,
Yeah.
you know, a story
Yeah.
about somebody
Yeah.
living in New York and just the character of the city itself.
Yeah.
It's a really special place. Because the first time I got to go to New York was actually for a Guinness commercial,
Oh, really?
where I was supposed to have swum from Ireland to New York. Yeah.
When was that?
Yeah, so I was in the Hudson briefly. That was in, I'm gonna say, like 2004 maybe, or something like that.
Was that like one of your first jobs?
Well, I did like lots of bits and pieces, I think. You know, little parts and television stuff here, there. I did a play out of drama school. But yeah, it was one of the early on ones for sure.
So what did you swim across and then go to a pub and...
And apologize to someone.
For what? What do you mean?
Well, that was the mystery.
Oh,
Yeah.
and then you got a pint.
And then I got a pint. I think it was something to do with his girlfriend, because she was also in the pub.
Right.
But what I realized doing that...
Have you seen it? Is it on YouTube?
It's out there somewhere.
Oh, I
Yeah,
gotta
yeah.
find
It's
that.
called The Quarrel.
The Quarrel.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh.
But what was fascinating was there was a guy that his one job is to pour the perfect pint of Guinness.
Yeah.
And he wasn't available. He was an elderly gentleman, so his son was there
Oh.
to sort of, you know, cover. And I thought it was...
And not as good.
I don't know, because I could never compare it to,
Right, yeah, you couldn't have
to his
the
father.
expert
Looked pretty
there.
good to me.
Wow.
So I just saw Maestro yesterday. Blew me away.
Oh.
Really incredible piece of work. Very moving. And just so much to really sort of talk about. But what really sort of struck me was the kind of people of that era as well. Never sort of complaining, you know, the sort of dedication to one another. It was very sort of reaffirming for love, I thought.
Yeah.
You know, that was something that I found really powerful. And I actually got that from A Star Is Born as well.
Yeah.
It's something, obviously, you know, that Bradley sort of really zones in on. And it's a very powerful message in both those films.
Yeah.
What I also found so... because I don't want to give any spoilers away, but your character, Felicia, ends up getting cancer. And just that detail of the way you folded the toilet roll. You took that from somebody in real life.
Well,
right?
that was, yeah. I mean, so we did a Q&A about this the other night, well, about the film, and someone mentioned that. And so I threw the question to Bradley Cooper, because obviously he wrote the script with Josh Singer. That specific action, that was something that his dad did, who died of cancer. So that was in the script, and something that he talked about as such a kind of core memory of his experience at that time. And it was such a kind of heartbreaking detail, but it really did tie in so well with her as a character, because she was, you know, by all reports, just immaculate. You know, and there was something kind of immaculate about this, that she wouldn't allow herself to fall into sort of messy illness. You know, she was always dressed for guests, and she had her hair would always be. She would never allow anyone to see, you know, her hair. That she was covered with a scarf, and that there was something sort of, you know, we were said that she would have a manicure the whole way through. You know, there was just something about her that was just immaculate and poised, and through her whole life, even before her illness, just someone who was absolutely determined to not be a victim in their
That's the thing, yeah.
experience. And so I thought it was so moving for him to put that detail in, and it felt so personal, and doing it felt so personal. And I mean, those whole couple of days where we were shooting all those scenes, you know, you have the ultimate experience of playing someone who's sort of facing the end of their life, but it does sort of weirdly sort of resonate and, you know, trigger such an overused word, but people really, there was an AD who sort of had an aunt who had been sick with cancer, and I could see, you know, just, I think even just the makeup, seeing someone sort of looking like that, and was just, it's fragile stuff. So it was all done amazingly. Our crew were just the best. We had the best crew. But it was very kind of sweet and quiet for those couple of days, for these little kind of details. And look at me now. Who's the one who hasn't been honest?
The details of it was what really like got me sort of, you know, emotional. You know, and somebody I knew that passed away from cancer as well had that detail, and just like the folding of preparing
Mm.
all those sort of little bits of tissue, and that action alone, it just was like brought a lot of things back.
Mm.
And the scene where the doctor comes in and first diagnoses
Mm.
Felicia with cancer, that was so powerful, that scene. Like,
Yeah.
and then it was almost like the film found another realm, where the two characters connecting again.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's so nice that actually happened in
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
And there's a scene when Bradley Cooper's conducting towards the end, and
Yeah.
Felicia's standing in the wings, you're standing there, and he runs over immediately after and embraces.
Yeah.
It was very powerful.
Yeah. Shooting that scene was, I mean, it was kind of one of the most extraordinary experiences I've had on set, because it really was the London Symphony Orchestra.
Crazy. Wow.
And it was in this beautiful cathedral, and it was replicating exactly what happened. So in 76, Leonard Bernstein conducted Mahler's Second in Ely Cathedral with the LSO. So we were just making it. It was wild, and they were playing for real, and everyone was just sitting there going, like, we're getting this live. And Yannick Seguin, who's an incredible conductor, who was our sort of musical director, guide on the whole thing, he was there conducting them, and then Bradley conducted them. He conducted that take that's in the film.
Wow.
I know, it was wild. And I remember us all, like, they're just so, when people are just absolute experts at something, real kind of world class, like the first violin and
Yeah.
you just think like, oh, we look like such pretenders, it just feels so. And I imagine for Bradley just thinking like, the classical music world is here looking at him, as Leonard Bernstein, and the pressure of that to actually do it. But I felt I didn't even have anything to do, and I felt like, oh, I want them to like us because they're just so. It's like, do they believe me standing here doing nothing? And I think there was, because the skill of these people is just extraordinary, and they were really impressed with him as a conductor, and I just thought, that's a testament to how much prep you've done, that they don't think they actually have followed you for this. You have conducted them. This isn't any kind of trick. They're not doing their own. You actually did conduct them. It was remarkable.
I've often thought about that, with like acting, and then you look at sort of like musicians or dancers. And I've often thought, how do we replace the fact that they get to like practice every day?
Yeah.
So it's like, 6 hours every day or whatever, the number is.
Yeah.
And how do we do that?
Well, that's what
I run around the kitchen.
I saw your film, The Killer,
Yeah.
and loved it, as I love all Fincher films.
Yeah.
Fincher.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
incredible.
Cool. Yeah, incredible. And I don't know, I wanted to ask you what prep you did for that, because, I mean, I know we can't do the 6 hours a day. We also have children and lives and other things going on.
Well, I perform for them for 6 hours.
Sit here, kids. Watch me do press-ups on my fingertips. Can you do press-ups on your fingertips?
Oh, my God. Well, I did say to them, I was like, I think I got about 100 in me.
Okay.
Here.
How many did you have to do?
I think I ended up,
You got 100 press-ups on
well,
your
not
fingers?
like consecutively. You know what I mean? It's like, I'll do 10.
You could do 10?
But then I ended up, and I never let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Yeah, right.
But I'm pretty sure I did 260.
What?
Through this. I can't remember.
That's very impressive.
I remember regretting telling them that I could do it.
Just do a plank.
It all comes down to preparation, attention to detail, redundancies, and redundancies.
I mean, it's such an extraordinary performance because, you have these encounters where there's these enormous scenes with incredible actors.
Yeah.
Tilda Swinton.
Yeah.
And there's so little dialogue. Most things we hear from you are from, an internal monologue.
Yeah.
I just can't imagine how if you think about breaking down a scene before you're doing something, and you're looking at your dialogue and you're thinking about, like, how do you do that with just silence?
I think it's like, I was so happy. I was like, oh,
To
I
not
don't have to
talk.
learn lines. It's like, I'm such a slow learner of lines. That's brilliant. I know for me, I was just trying to get into a space of not thinking.
Yeah.
In general, going into scene or acting, I try to find that place
Mm.
where I'm not thinking. I'll have done a lot of work at home beforehand, looking at the scenes, sort of, trying to get an inspiration for the character, figuring out what the character's all about, what their sort of, backstory would be, all the homework stuff, all the boring stuff, Hopefully then by the time we get on set, I just can, and it's hard to do. I find it hard to do, to get to that place where you're just not thinking. You're not going, oh, God, yeah, I should do this because this is good. Or when I do something, I was like, that was good, do it again. To just sort of find something that is in that empty space. And then, just to try and have something that, a person that is non-emotionally engaging in something. So just like studying animals.
Huh.
Oh yeah, like drama school. I remember we used to have to go to the zoo, pick an animal.
What drama school did you go to?
Yeah, I went to a place called Drama Center.
Drama Centre.
Yeah.
I auditioned for Drama Centre.
Okay, and how did it go?
They said I should be a children's television presenter.
Oh my God, that's so mean.
They were so mean.
They were so mean.
But I was
at times.
devastated. I
Where did you go?
I didn't get in anywhere, and I ended up just.
And look,
Well,
you were like,
no,
how
but
that
I
turned
so
out.
wanted. Anyway, so yeah, drama school stuff.
Yeah, where they tell
Did
you
you
to go
go
and
to the
find
zoo?
an animal. Yeah, yeah.
What animal is your character in?
Oh, in this, I didn't have an animal at
No.
all. I was just, I was just looking at animals that, like, predators.
Yeah.
So, like, anything from the cat family to, even like monkeys. Just the way that animals like zone in on something, and just the focus without any, without any emotional content. Just sort of pure focus, looking for an opportunity, observation. And then just finding a person. I didn't want the character to be cool at all. I felt like this character was sort of socially awkward and didn't feel like it was a person that had a lot of friends. And then there was the comic book series. There was a lot of information about the character in that too that I could draw from.
Is David Fincher the kind of director where you have all of this backstory and all the things you've worked out for yourself that ultimately we probably never, it's the kind of stuff where you do loads of stuff and you're like, well, this will never be in the film, but this is how I imagine it. Is that stuff that you shared with him, or he shared like bits with you that were helpful? Or was it sort of your own journey that you just put into it?
With Fincher, we didn't really discuss much about that backstory. We discussed, it's in the story itself that, he's at law school, So what's interesting about this sort of comic book as well is he kind of falls into it by accident at college from, one of his professors, and just found that he was sort of good at it and found it like it was something that he could do. But we never really talked a lot of backstory. There was just sort of unspoken stuff. I think a lot of the connection that we both sort of found at the beginning was just doing the first costume fitting. The comic book is based on Le Samurai. That's a big influence on the comic book series. Alain Delon in Le Samurai, he looks sharp, he looks amazing. He's got the fedora type hat and beautiful suits. And then we just started dressing the killer, and it was like found bucket hats, things that looked a little off.
Yeah.
It looked like
the German tourist.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, this is cool because it's not cool. We didn't
Yeah.
want to try and make it cool.
Yeah.
And also, that's the brilliant mind of David Fincher. He was like, this is something this guy could buy in any airport.
Yes.
And
yeah.
these are the kind of clothes you can pick up in any airport in the world.
And if you go around looking like a sort of suave secret, if you look like someone, then you're bringing.
It's a different film.
It's a different film, yeah. There's so much wit in this film as well, which there's no room for that if you've got a kind of very suave.
Yeah, you don't want somebody who's going to stand out in the crowd as well. You want somebody that you wouldn't notice.
Yeah.
And all of that was like, everything is about the process for what the job requires. So there's nothing else, in terms of style or form that comes in the way of that for this guy's, action. The attention to detail that Fincher brings to every scene is just fantastic and phenomenal. And he's super generous with it.
And did he explain why it was the Smiths? And did you have the Smiths, like, as a playlist?
I think he found it funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
That what would, like, if, this is the hit playlist, literally, the hit playlist. What would this guy listen to if he had to get into the mood or bring his heart rate down?
Yeah.
And it was like, I'm not sure if the Smiths was just for the Paris job or whether it's a go-to playlist.
Yeah, right.
But it was sort of a conversation again, super
it's
generous.
It's such a great soundtrack. I mean, it's such an amazing, but also the sound, like that huge fight scene.
Yeah.
No spoiler, but that epic epic fight scene.
Yeah.
The sound in that scene is just, I mean, all the sound just makes, there's so many times where I went, you know, it's, you know, it's a film about an assassin. So without spoilers, you can imagine there's some pretty gnarly sounds, but the
Yeah.
sound of the whole film is extraordinary.
It's cool that you zoned in on that particular scene because he did something interesting with that. You know, there was a lot of grunting and pow, you know, especially as an actor, you're like kushung.
Yeah.
No, but like the grunting, you know, that would happen in sort of the fight sequence like that, he took that out.
Ah,
So it becomes a super sort of intimate scene between these two
yeah.
guys.
Yeah.
And you can just hear the blows,
Yeah.
which
the blows
then are so like, you know,
so
brutal.
Yeah.
And you don't hear that sort of like the what would come out of your mouth when these things are happening.
No, you
So
hear like
it's a very strange
things
thing.
cracking and
Yeah,
breaking, and
exactly.
it's really hard. It's it's really amazing.
And tell me about being directed by Bradley Cooper. I mean, I've known him many years now.
Have you?
And it's been amazing to watch him just evolve. Like, you know, I called him up after seeing the film yesterday morning and I was like, I'm a little bit scared of you. I mean, it's like phenomenal. I thought, how do you go into prosthetics for 4 hours?
Oh, man.
I imagine it took 4 hours.
Oh, yeah. At least it was crazy.
And then have the energy to direct as well as sort of,
Yeah.
what was it like?
Yeah, I mean, he did so much prep. You know, he prepped to the point where he walked on set and didn't have to think, you know, like you say. And I think to be able to direct it and write it and star in it and all that stuff, he needed to get everything out of the way. So he was ringing me like a year before in full Lenny voice with everything.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
I'd be like putting the kids to bed and I'd get a FaceTime from him as Lenny.
Oh my God.
Be like, oh, okay. Call you back, mate. But he, you know, it was really.
You should have got him to do story time in the Leonard
I
Bernstein
know.
voice.
Well, what's so funny is that
done
they, so you know when you go to work and you get a bit of gyp from your kids and whatever, and so they kind of for the first time caught on to the fact that you know that someone was calling the shots and that you know I had a boss, so to speak, in Bradley, and so it'd be every time I had to go anywhere, they'd be like, oh, why is Bradley making you? So they really got sort of a thing about him being the boss and being the person that meant that I had to get up really early and go to work or something. But yeah, so he and I started talking about it in 2018.
Wow.
So I was doing a one-woman show off Broadway that I transferred from the Royal Court. So I was doing this little run there, and he came to the first preview of that. So we met up a couple of days after that, and he spoke to me about it then. So we'd been in touch about it forever, and then we went to Philadelphia together and narrated Candide, one of Bernstein's operas, with the Philadelphia Orchestra. I know, which is when he first he said, Yannick Seguin wants to know if we want to go to Philadelphia and narrate Candide. And I went, yeah, and had literally no idea what that meant. I was just so determined to show willing. I was like, oh yeah, I'd love to. And then I called my mum and I was like, how do you narrate an opera? Do I have to sing? But I didn't have to sing. It's like there's a narrator in that opera who guides you through it. So we split the role and narrated this opera. And it was just a most amazing experience ever being, I mean, we were on stage with the orchestra and this like enormous choir. And so we'd done that. And so we had a couple of years of doing all the stuff together. We worked with Tim Monnick. Have you ever worked with Tim, dialect coach?
Yes, I love. He's great.
He's amazing.
Because I was just about to ask. That was my next question. How did you like crack? Because yours is sort of there's a Chilean sort of twist in your accent. Am I wrong in thinking?
No. There is 100%. Yeah. I mean, her accent was so specific because she was born in Costa Rica. She moved to Chile as a child. She did most of her education there, and then she went to New York. And her father was American, but she also wanted to be a New York actress.
Yes,
so she was sort of there was a real kind of mid-Atlantic kind of Katharine Hepburn thing, but then you can hear a little bit of but we were so lucky because there's these amazing tapes that exist of the two of them speaking. So they were interviewed by this guy called John Gruen, who was writing a book about them, about Bernstein really, but that she was interviewed as well. And so there's sort of a couple of hours of tape of just them talking and being interviewed. And so we got to study that with Tim and, do the accent stuff.
You nailed it. I mean, it's like one of those things that could really kind of be jarring if you didn't feel totally comfortable with it. And both of you looked like super comfortable. And
Yeah.
Please, what's the harm? I know exactly who you are. Give it a whirl.
When he first offered me the job, he was like, you know, I want you to do this, but on sort of on the proviso that you kind of go, you know, really give it everything.
All in, yeah.
Which I immediately thought in my head, not all in, you know.
Never all in.
No,
darling.
come on. But, you know, there was something about it. I thought, oh, crikey, you know, that's playing a real person and all that, you know, and playing someone who does have this quite kind of interesting dialect. And, you know, there's a real, the responsibility to their children, you know,
Yeah,
who
for
are,
sure.
you know, a big part of this process was huge. That was actually the only way to do it, was just to do the whole thing. So I went to Chile and I met the family and I, you know, sort of spent lots of time with the kids. And the thing about it, what helped is that it was something that the more you learned about them, the more you wanted to know. You know, they were just fascinating. The letters they used to write to each other, you know.
That's great.
And these tapes of them talking, you know, the way they told anecdotes, the two of them, like a couple that had been together forever, and just, you know, it was like music, just listening to them talk, and they had these fabulous voices. I mean, everything about them was just so wonderful. So once you started learning, it was kind of, you know, and the kids are just like that. They're just an amazing, I call them the kids, you know, they're in their 60s, but they just have the most fascinating stories about their childhood. And, you know, it was just a world that you wanted to just sort of stay inside. So.
And they ended up going back to Chile?
They didn't go to Chile, I went.
Oh, you
and I met
went?
her family who still live there, yeah.
Wow, that's...
So I met her brother-in-law, who sadly passed away but was 95, and her nephew and a couple of other sort of extended family. And I just loved her. I just think she was just an amazing woman. So it was the responsibility of sort of paying tribute to her properly.
Having played sort of real characters as well, when you distilling the stories, creating, I suppose, your own essence in the end of what other people would sort of, you know, paint of a picture of a person.
Yeah.
Did you find that easy because there was so much of it, or did you find that because there were so many people that you met, you also found like the weight of the responsibility there?
I did feel like Bradley had complete command of the whole situation. You know, not in a, it was incredibly collaborative. You could kind of do whatever you want, but it felt like it would land in the right place because his vision was so clear of what he wanted. So, and the script was really just so detailed, and you know, so there was a really amazing framework. So it was all lovely stuff to have, and I felt much closer to it and to the whole project because of all of that stuff. But ultimately, you get in there and, like you say, like try and just not think, you know, too much.
Yeah, you jump between theatre and film quite a bit.
Yeah, up until, I mean, just pre-COVID, it's harder when the kids get older because I thought, because when I did Girls and Boys in New York, my kids were not in school, but now the idea of missing bedtime and doing all that kind of stuff makes it trickier. But I do love theatre, and I particularly weirdly love doing this one woman show, which I thought I would be, I was terrified of, but I kind of loved it. And actually, you know, acting on your own, I remember, who was it? I think someone told me.
It's a dream. You're like, I don't have to deal with the rest of them.
But I was like, I thought I would be really lonely in the end. I sort of loved it, but I do love acting alongside other, you know, it's amazing to have that other person that you, particularly on stage.
Hello. I thought you might be here. You've certainly been making the rounds. Have you met the gang? Betty and Adolf, they're just arriving. Hello, Claire.
Watching The Killer, you're alone so much, doing so much.
Oh,
just,
yeah, it's true.
It is a kind of solitary, and then you have these kind of epic, incredibly written, you know, scenes of these brilliant actresses. Also, the actress who plays
Carey O'Malley, that plays the secretary.
She's so good.
Oh my God, she's so good.
She's so good.
She made me laugh. She was so good. You know, when people act really well, it makes me laugh.
Yeah.
And you know, she did that scene when we're in the elevator. And
that scene in the elevator. Oh my goodness.
I had to you know, it was those beautiful moments where you really want to laugh. You feel like you're at school again or something. And I was like, tried my best, you know, just to hold it in. She did that nervous laugh every time the guy's like, need any help getting rid of that body? And she was just like, nailed that like nervous laugh.
But also like she's about to scream and cry, and
absolutely.
it was genius. I thought she was so brilliant. And in the car on the way to the house, and she says, I'm not a bad person.
Yeah.
Oh, she ruined me. But she's brilliant. But aside from when you're with Tilda and her, and you know, the other sort of big scene, there is so much of you alone.
Mm-hmm.
How did you find that? How, like, not, you know, that the whole thing rests on you and the camera
It felt,
and David Fincher, obviously.
it felt good because after a while, as you start to find the rhythm with the camera operator, the dolly grip, you're trying to do things as smoothly and efficiently as possible because everything is movement and it's all physical in terms of whatever story you can tell about this person who's super obsessed with process. So it just became a very meditative sort of exercise in itself doing that. And then it just also helped all the time to inform the character. I was like, well, this is a guy that spends a lot of time on his own. He's talking to, he is, cracking up. That was always nice that would be sort of under the surface. And you can see at the end, with the twitch, there's, the system's cracking big time. The tricky thing with the character was like, this is a sociopath. So what is the scene in the hospital with his girlfriend? How does he get emotional? And does he get emotional because for years, he's been trying to sort of pretend he gets emotional. He realizes with the expectation of what a certain scene demands. Or is it because these people have come into his world, which he's carefully created, and that's including the girlfriend that he's with, and they've disturbed that and they've attacked that. And now he's sort of, that makes him upset.
Yeah.
So it was trying to figure out that actually that I found kind of the trickiest.
And did you land on it? I mean, did you make decisions about that kind of stuff?
I just made stuff up in the end.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
to hell with it. No. Sorry.
No. I know. I mean, what I loved as well is that, you don't answer all those questions in the film. And I loved, the scene with Tilda where you drink and you leave us thinking,
Yeah.
there's just so many unanswered things in the most wonderful way. There's no kind of neat ties to everything. It's just questions.
There's rules that the character will set up, and then there's rules the character breaks very often.
Yeah.
And I find with a character that's not doing much like that, and has a sort of very sort of economy of movement and whatever's happening in facial expressions, the audience can then start to project whatever they're thinking on the character, which is fun then because the audience are coming and they're doing some work and they're getting involved in this character's journey.
Yeah.
And that's always kind of a fun thing to play with. I think, actually going back to when we were doing Shame, remember Steve used to always say it's like a mirror, the screen, and if you can sort of get people at some points and flashes, obviously it's not all the time, but you just get those moments of looking in the mirror, that's kind of, the goal.
Like that recent day when you shouldered your weapon and somehow missed.
I auditioned for David Fincher for The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
Oh, wow.
I think I even almost dyed my hair black or something. I definitely wore a nose ring. And I got my friend who's a makeup artist to give me
like a punk sort of look.
I went all in. I did a Bradley. I went all in.
You went
my audition. I think I chain smoked in the gut. I mean, it was, he was very nice, but obviously didn't get the job. But did a lot of takes, to be fair, in the room, which I loved. And is obviously something that he's known for.
Yeah.
Did you end up doing lots of takes?
Yeah, I think there's just a process. Again, it's like through repetition, you find elements. So I think it's like something by the repetition. It's not just for the actors. I think it's for everything. So it's like whatever is in that frame or image needs to be distilled down. In his process. And through that distillation, you get what you have at the end on screen. And what I loved about him, I mean, many things, like I said, for one thing, that surprised me was how generous he was. Once you jump on board and you're like, okay, this is the way we're working, this is how we go. He's so generous with anybody that has any questions, in terms of the casting process and asking my opinions about, cuts, takes, whatever, voiceover stuff. Super inclusive on everything. And then it's just, sets high standards for what needs to happen in the day and sets high standards for himself more than anyone else.
Yeah.
But he speaks the same way to me than he does with the dolly grip, with the camera operator, with, hair and makeup. It's like, I love that.
Yeah, that's so nice. I would like it to be known that I love doing loads of takes. So
Usually I'm like, I said to him when I first met him, I was like, the first take is my favorite take.
Yeah. Oh, really?
And he was like, great.
Yeah. Yeah. I need to get to about take 13 before I'm any good. The first couple of takes, I'm like, just something goes camera, so I like doing.
I love take one because it's for free.
Yeah.
And I also like you know, people go, okay, let's rehearse. I go, let's just shoot it. Shoot the rehearsal.
Oh, I do always shoot the rehearsal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, especially with digital. But it really depends, you know. Like for me, you know, what I've learned is whatever the director's vision and whatever the director's style is of working, that's the one you come to work with. And, you know, the director is the artist, the architect, and we come, I feel like, and just do our bit in the house, you know, to put it together. And the films that I felt have really, you know, gone to another level, it's always down to the director.
What were you doing when you were...
What were you doing in that film?
You were driving...
What were you thinking?
No, I was going to ask about
Were you
driving
drunk?
cars.
Oh, yeah.
You've been driving cars.
Yeah.
My husband, you know Mark, you met
Yeah.
Marcus is very excited about your driving cars.
Yeah, I was excited too until it got hammered out of me. No, it was, I started 2017. And then the goal was to go GT racing and then the ultimate form.
What's GT racing?
So it's basically just the make of the car.
Right.
So it's Grand Tour, I think is what it stands for, but endurance racing.
Right.
And then the ultimate endurance race in the world over a one-day event is Le Mans. So the target was to go and race it. So I did it twice. I did it last year, which totally crushed me.
Wow.
Yeah, like I've never experienced like a mental implosion like that.
Oh my goodness.
And so I knew I had to go back this year because it terrified me. And I was like,
and to conquer it, sort of thing.
well, to just go back and
psychologically.
face it.
Yeah.
Not to have the scars
Yeah.
from that, you know, not to walk away from it. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. But I crashed. 17
So
minutes
that
left.
was that just something that you always wanted to do?
I always just, as a child, all my earliest memories are kind of cars. You know, we came over from Germany on a truck with all our sort of furniture and stuff.
Yeah.
It was a big green truck. And my earliest memories, and I don't know if I created this from seeing pictures, but I would have been 2.5, where I remember sitting behind the steering wheel of that big green truck. And then just always loved cars, and my dad taught me how to drive fairly young. So 12, I kind of, you know, drive by myself. But it's, you know, you need money, you need resources to go racing. It was never an option. And so, but I always just loved it. I loved watching Formula One, and then just I thought, okay, I wanted to sort of take a break from acting. I felt like I'd done so many things back to back. And I felt like I needed to step away. And I also wanted to start racing. I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll start racing. I thought it would be in go-karts, but then Ferrari came and approached me. That was the start. And then I went with Porsche.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's been a very interesting ego exercise.
What, really?
Yeah, it's definitely very humbling, yeah.
But terrifying, surely.
Not really.
But you can get really hurt.
I mean, touch wood. There is no wood. God, there's no wood. It was like, it is terrifying at the beginning, at the speeds. Once you get into the car and you start driving, the speed then doesn't really register until you crash. Then you realize you're going fast.
Yeah.
But up until then, everything's kind of going the same speed as you out in track.
Oh.
So, and
I literally can't imagine. I can't imagine it.
And, thankfully, the technology is incredible.
Yeah.
And
So
I
will you
know I
carry on?
tested it.
Will you carry on doing it, or will you?
I'm going to, I'll go back to work now.
Right.
Oh,
So you still think of acting as that's
the problem, I can't do both together.
Right.
Because the racing season starts beginning of April, and it goes all the way to the end of October.
Right.
And there's a race that would come every 3 weeks or 4 weeks maximum.
Yeah.
So you can't really shoot a film in 3 weeks. I can't get insured.
I was going to say the insurance would be a bit of a nightmare.
Yeah. So unless I can do a film in 3 weeks, and I have done like a little short, part in something. But other than that, it's kind of impossible. So I'll go back to work next year, and then I want to go back to Le Mans again for
Is it
sure.
equal love, or is it?
Well, I feel like acting is something that I'm better at. I definitely felt like I should go back to work because I was thinking, I was thinking about this, talking with a friend the other night about it. I was like, if I didn't, I wouldn't know what to do, actually. I'm not really good at anything. I realized when I stopped acting, because acting became such a sort of like identity of myself through acting. I was like, well, if I'm good at my job, and then, that will sort of, be a projection of myself, I guess. I don't know. But I thought, okay, I'll just stop acting. And sort of, and
That's
then
so
I was
huge,
like, wow, I'm really not good at anything. I was like, I can't, like changing a light bulb. I was like, thank God, you know, I got lucky. One thing I realized, you know, through the racing is when I'm back on set, I'm like, this is my workspace.
Yeah.
This is what
Mm.
I can do.
I've come to realize that the moment when it's time to act is not when risk is greatest.
Do you find that since you've become a parent,
Mm.
you've changed as an actor, do you think?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's just, you know, it's the reason I didn't get into drama school, right? It's like I had no real life experience. You know, there was nothing really I think there's
I
just...
disagree. I think you were a pretty phenomenal actress or actor out of the gates, you know. And I think drama schools are dodgy. They turn a lot of people away.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I definitely would have been a bad children's television presenter because I cannot look down the lens of a camera. It's my absolute nightmare. But yeah, I think it has. I think it's, but it, you know, it's not like it's a thing where I now do less because they're there. I just I've kind of done less for just wanting the things that I do to feel really kind of scary and new and exciting. It's sort of like my version of your race driving. You know, Felicia was so scary as a prospect, but if it wasn't, I wouldn't have been interested. You know, and the play I did, you know, scared the shit out of me. But that was a big part of the appeal. So I'm in waiting for those things to come along. It means I do get a lot of time at home.
And time is precious at home. So
And
you
time's
want to
so
make sure
precious
that
at
what
home.
you're doing
So
is...
when you're leaving, it's for a good reason.
Yeah.
But yeah, what about you?
Absolutely, because it's not like, for me, the number one priority is not myself anymore, for sure.
Yeah.
And they're inspiring to watch.
Mm.
You know, I was like, oh, I'll use that in the next thing I do.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
you know.
It's wild. It's so wild
very
to be
enriching.
sitting. It is funny to be sitting here. You know, I feel like Shane was sort of, I mean, I really wanted Steve to take me seriously. Do you know what I mean? Like I had done an education and I'd done lots of sort of British, you know, Miss Marple and Doctor Who and lots of kind of British things. And I felt like that character and this film and working with you was so high end, you know, and I really remember thinking like, you know, I really want for him to sort of think of me as being able to really act and to be able to be in a thing with you, you know, and having, I was just to try and kind of come up to your level.
Well, come on.
No, but really, I do. I remember thinking that like every day. I was so intimidated. But you were so lovely. I didn't end up feeling that, but I did think like Steve McQueen, Michael Fassbender. This is as good as it gets.
I was intimidated too. You know, just scared, but so cool to see you
Yeah, it's so
again,
nice to see you.
and inspiring. You know, watching your work and
Oh,
just, you know, all the different roles that you challenge yourself with and deliver on, you know, consistently. It's so impressive.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Likewise.